Well, good morning and welcome back to Godstone Baptist Church online service here on the 6th of September 2020. And we're really glad you could tune in, whether you're from the church or whether you're tuning in from outside. Welcome this morning. Now, kids, how was school this week? Because you've gone back. It's all started up again, hasn't it? I hope it went really well for you. But for the rest of the church, I suppose September is a time when everything starts back up again, doesn't it? And we're starting to think about what we want to do for this new term together. Let me give you a few ideas of some of the things you can do this term, church, as you gather, whether it's online or whether it's in person. First, it's the BU Assembly. Believe it or not, you can watch that online for the first time this year, 16th of September. 7 o'clock in the evening. It'll be an opportunity to hear about and pray about the work of Baptists together in the UK. They'll present an annual report for 2019. It provides all sorts of updates on work done so far in 2020 and all the plans for the future. You can find a link for that in Scattered Salt if you want to join in with the BU Assembly this year. Second thing is, small groups are starting back up again. Life groups, we call them. You've been meeting on Zoom. That's really helpful. And sometimes you've been meeting in gardens because we're trying to meet a little bit more in person over the summer months. But as autumn approaches, we're making some plans to be able to use the church for your life groups. Place where you can social distance and meet safely. It'll be big enough for that. So talk to us if you'd like to do that, and we can give you the guidelines as we work them out ourselves. Now, just for life groups, here's a little pointer about a new resource from Care for the Family. It's based on a book by Rob Parsons and it's called The Wisdom House. Now, it's 8 video sessions and there is a 40-page leader's guide that you can get. It's all free and it's designed to build relationships and discuss everyday issues. Things like fulfilling your dreams or friendships or difficult people or the nature of love, forgiveness, living a life where you're true to yourself, the story of the prodigal son, and finding contentment. Those are the 8 different sessions. And it works for people in the church, but it also works really well for folks who might be inquiring and looking in from the outside. An opportunity for your group to be more outward focused this term, particularly on issues that matter to your neighbours and to your friends. So why not take a look as a group, plan some sessions either on Zoom or in the church and invite your friends, neighbours, work colleagues, whoever. You could buy the book and you could call it a book club and use the videos to supplement your groups as you talk about real life issues together. Let me give you a little taster, and this is Rob Parsons just introducing the idea behind the course.
Do you ever wish you had a little more wisdom in your life? I know there have been times when I certainly have. How'd you handle that difficult person? You know, the one in your office, your college, your church, perhaps even your family. Is it okay to go on pursuing that dream when someone's just poured cold water all over it? In the Wisdom House, I get the chance to look at those issues and share lessons I've learned down many years from those far wiser than I, and a couple I've learnt myself the very hard way. How'd you really nail that dream? How'd you handle your critics? You know, we've all got 2 kinds of critics in our lives. The first kind are on our side. What they say may hurt, but we need them. But the second kind aren't on our side. Trying to please them will drive us crazy. How'd you seize the day, Find out one life lesson that you know can change everything. I'm excited about this event. We get the chance to laugh together, perhaps occasionally brush away a tear, but be inspired and encouraged as we look at these issues. I honestly believe that any single moment of this event could plant a seed that could change your life forever. I really hope I get the chance to welcome you to the Wisdom House.
There you go. That looks like a really good course to have a go at in your groups and to invite people along. Why don't you have a go at that? All the links for the web page and the details that describe the course are included in Scattered Salt this week, so take a look at that. Okay, Eddie's around, but you're going to have to do the usual thing. You're going to have to wake him up. You ready? You're going to have to wake him up. Okay, so from the comfort of your own sofa, would you shout very loudly, "Wake up, Eddie," after 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no, I didn't get that. Open a window, maybe, a door or two. Lean out. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Here he is. Hey Eddie, how you doing? That took a bit longer than normal. What? You can't sleep. You can't. That's unusual for you. You're normally doing a lot of that. But you can't sleep. No? What's the problem? What's up? Questions keep keeping him up at night, folks. Questions, Ed. What is it? What question? What? Why am I here? Well, Ed, you're here to fill in a 3-minute slot on this video, mate. That's why you're here. What? Seriously? I'm sorry, that's not helpful, was it? No. Okay, but seriously, Ed, why are you here? It's a bit deep, Eddie, for this time of the morning, 10:30, and you're asking, why am I here? It's very what? It's very existential, apparently, folks. Ed, this is the kids' slot. 4-syllable words, existential, not appropriate, for the kids' slot. Is it rude? No, it's not rude, but you don't know what it means, and neither do they. So let's not go there. This is not a philosophy class. Okay, so why are you here? That's the question. Okay, that's the question. Well, you know what, Ed, I'll tell you, and the folks out there, a lot of people think that God has a very detailed plan for every step of your life. What job you'll have, who you'll marry, where you'll live, all that sort of stuff. A lot of people have one view about, why they're here. I'm never so sure. Really? Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm not so sure that's what God means when he says things like this on the screen, that he has a plan for us. I think God's plan is really for us to be like Jesus. Wherever we are, wherever we work, and with whoever we marry, and even if we don't, just to be like Jesus. I think that's what God's plan is for us. There you go. How do you do that? How do you be like Jesus? That's a good question. How do you be like Jesus and fulfill his plan for your life? Let me think. What? Do you need to grow a beard? No. And why do you assume Jesus have a beard? Just because I can't grow one. That's not the point. It's not the point. Everybody assumes he's got a beard. Okay. It's not about what. Do you have to learn woodwork to be like Jesus? No, you don't have to learn woodwork to be like Jesus. You don't. No. Not exactly. But God has left you, however, with a set of instructions on how to be like Jesus. He has, yeah. Bit like that wardrobe I built. We're back on the woodwork thing, aren't we? Oh, I see what you mean. A set of instructions, wardrobes. Okay, yeah. Yes, I suppose so. It is a bit like a set of instructions for building something. Except you're building yourself into someone like Jesus. That's right, yeah. Does it include swearing and threatening to invade Sweden? No. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry about that. I have apologised about that. That was just me. Sorry. That's what happens when I build things from IKEA. But there you go. But the point is, Ed, God has left us with some instructions, it's called the Bible, on how to be like Jesus. And that's his plan for our lives, how to build our lives into something that looks like him. That's why you're here, mate, to be like him. And he's promised to help us too. A bit like with the IKEA thing. Yeah, I know, I can never do them on my own. I always need someone else to help me put it all together. And the Holy Spirit is the person who helps us put it all together. Yeah, and build a life that looks like Jesus. Yeah, so we can be a blessing not only to ourselves, but to the whole wide world. Because if we all look like Jesus, wow, the world would be a much better place. Yeah, with beards. No, not with beards. Forget the beard. Okay, good. All right. So we're here to be like Jesus. That's why you're here, mate. That's good. Okay. Now, last week, you remember we were talking about Joshua. Do you remember that? Yeah, good. We were talking about Joshua and that God promised to be with him wherever he went. Well, God also promised to have a plan for his life and a plan for what he needed to do next. So let's have a look at that, shall we? All right.
The Faithful Hall of Fame, Rahab. This is Rahab.
Hi.
Rahab lived in the town of Jericho in the Promised Land. Rahab was not an Israelite, and she made bad choices. But God had a plan for Rahab, even though she was a sinner.
All right.
Now God told his people, the Israelites,
Hey, that's us.
to go into the Promised Land. So Joshua sent 2 spies to search the land around the city of Jericho. The 2 spies came to Rahab's house to stay the night. But the king of Jericho heard that there were spies in his city, so he sent orders for Rahab to bring them out. But Rahab hid the spies and told the king's men that it was true that the men were at her house, but she did not know where they were now.
I don't know. But
She told the king's men to go quickly to find the spies because they could not have gone far.
oh no.
Oh, right.
So the king's men rushed out to the city in pursuit of the Israelite spies. All the while, the Israelites hid on Rahab's roof. So Rahab went to them and said, I know the Lord has given you this land. We have heard of the great acts that God has done for you. Your God is the God of all the heavens and the earth. So please swear to me that you will be kind to my family. The spies agreed to this, and Rahab helped them escape from the city. Before they left, they told Rahab to tie a scarlet rope to the window.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oops.
This rope would serve as a mark for Rahab's house and would remind the Israelites of their promise to her.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And so the spies were on their way. For 3 days, they hid from the king's men who were looking for them. Finally, they returned to Joshua and told them all they had seen. Rahab was remembered for her faithfulness, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies and put her trust in the one true God.
So there you go. Thanks to Ali for introducing us to the story of Joshua and for carrying that on this week. God has a plan. He had a plan for getting his people into the promised land, and he has a plan for us. And our plan is to grow ever more in the image of his Son. That's our plan, wherever we are and whatever we do. Now, we've been talking over the last few weeks also about grace. And today we're going to be camping out in Matthew 23. And I want to take a risk of talking about legalism. It's a risk because there's a sense in which the church and society seem to be going the other way. Because as morality seems to be slipping in our world, rules for morality start looking very appealing, doesn't it? Legalism starts to feel appealing as people seem to ignore morality in our world. But there's no greater threat to grace than legalism. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Legalism as a way of being right with God is a sort of false purity. It's really grace avoidance all over again. That's why Jesus reserved his most stinging rebukes for the legalists of his day, the Pharisees, because they represented the greatest threat to his gospel, a gospel all about grace. And we've all had these brushes, haven't we, in our past at some point with legalism. Charles Swindoll talks about a youth worker he knew many years ago. And being a rather forward-looking and creative young man, he decided he would show the youth group a missionary film. We're talking simple, safe, black and white, religious-orientated movie that might have included some images of tribes that have different traditions about dress codes, let's just say that. That film projector hadn't been off for more than about an hour before a group of the leaders in the church called him in and asked him about what he'd done. They asked him, "Did you show the young people a film?" He responded, "Well, yeah, I did." "We don't like that," they replied. Without trying to be argumentative, the youth worker reasoned with them. "Well, I remember that at the last missionary conference, our church showed some slides, and one of the church officers put his hand up, signalling him to cease talking immediately. And then in these words, he emphatically explained the conflict. If it's still, fine. If it moves, sin. You can show slides, but when they start moving, you're getting into sin." Seriously, true story. Legalism, there are battles in the history of the church. They include short wearing in church, jewellery, makeup, dancing, working on a Sunday, the length of a skirt. It's incredible how many arguments have been caused. The problem is legalism doesn't stay in the past. It's a danger to every generation, and it was specifically a danger to Jesus' generation. Here's what Jesus had to say to the legalists of his day, and he didn't pull any punches.
Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. Woe to you, blind guides! You say, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing. But anyone who swears by the gold of the temple is bound by that oath. You blind fools! Which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? You also say, if anyone swears by the altar, it means nothing. But anyone who swears by the gift on the altar is bound by that oath. You blind men! Which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore, anyone who swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And anyone who swears by the temple swears by it, and by the one who dwells in it. And anyone who swears by heaven swears by God's throne and by the one who sits on it. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides! You strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee! First clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside also will be clean. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness.
There you go. That's Jesus talking to the legalists of his day. And legalism was a threat to his gospel that was all about grace. But legalism is still dangerous today. It hasn't gone away. And it's dangerous because, let's be honest, legalism is quite attractive. Despite the run-ins that we've all had, good and bad experiences, legalism can be quite attractive. You see, here's what you can do with legalism. You can hide behind it. Matthew 23, 25 to 28, this is what Jesus says. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, he says. You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they're all full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, he says. First clean the inside of the cup and the dish, then the outside will also be clean. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're like whitewashed tombs, he says, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you're full of hypocrisy and wickedness. You see, with legalism, and this is why it's attractive, it's possible to look good but not actually be good. That's because, by its very nature, legalism encourages us to concentrate on externals. It means we can avoid dealing with the real issues inside our own lives. That may be comforting, but it's very short-sighted. Samuel Tuke, English reformer of the 19th century, introduced radical new approach to the treatment of the mentally ill in his day. Tuke taught them how to behave at dinner parties and at church. He dressed people who were really psychologically very unwell and dressed them up the same way as everybody else was dressed, so that no one would recognise who they really were. On the outside they looked fine, but he did nothing to address their suffering. And no matter how well they behaved outwardly, they remained really very ill. That's what legalism can do. It can teach us to look okay, while all the time it hides or suppresses deeper inner problems in our lives. The truth is, we're all ill. We're all sinners, according to God. And to cover that up, you end up avoiding the grace that could actually really help us. Here's the second reason why legalism is still attractive even today. Legalism offers us a bit of self-satisfaction. Legalism offers us great opportunity to feel good about ourselves. There's no doubt that the Pharisees did exactly that in Matthew 23 verse 30. Listen to this. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our forefathers, we would not have taken part with them in the shedding of the blood of the prophets. Legalism, like theirs, builds its faith around rules. The problem is that although those rules can be difficult, those rules can also be achievable. There's an immense danger with this, because we lose our sense of need. C.S. Lewis puts it like this: prostitutes are in no danger of finding their present life so satisfactory that they cannot turn to God. The proud, the avaricious, the self-righteous are in that danger. Now just take a look at Jesus' rules. He always refused to define a set of rules that you could ever totally fulfill to your own satisfaction. Have you noticed that? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your strength and all of your soul. Let's be honest, you can never arrive on that one, can you? You'll always be working at it. How about this one? Be perfect, as my Father in heaven is perfect. You never make it, do you? Read the Sermon on the Mount. The bar is set so high, you'll be working on it for the rest of your life. Those were the sort of rules that Jesus set. The difference between the Pharisees' religion and Jesus' faith was this: the Pharisees could come to a dead stop and feel happy about it. They'd obeyed all of the laws that they'd set up. The Christian, however, is always aware, in words of most of our school reports, that we could do better. Leo Tolstoy put it like this: a man who professes an external law is like someone standing in the light of a lantern fixed to a post. It is light all around him, but there's nowhere further for him to walk. A man who professes the teaching of Christ is like a man carrying a lantern on a pole before him, always lighting up fresh ground and always encouraging him to walk further. Legalism avoids the grace that wants to move us on, to change us, to take us to new places. Legalism lets you sit quite comfortably where you are. It is grace avoidance to the detriment of our growth in Christ. Let me just sum this one up. Legalism can be very attractive even to us. It's a way of avoiding real issues in our lives by concentrating on external things. It's a way of feeling we're okay, that we've made it, because we can fulfill certain man-made rules. Timothy Keller puts it like this: legalism is looking to something beside Jesus Christ in order to be acceptable and clean before God. It appeals to that part of us that wants to earn it, that wants to believe that we can do this by ourselves, that we can do it without help, and we can even do it without God. That part of us that hates being dependent or reliant on another person. That part that started the whole sin thing back in the garden called Eden. Jesus says, without me you can do nothing. Surrender to my grace, my undeserved favour. That goes against everything we've ever been taught growing up. That's why we're all closet legalists if we're really honest with ourselves. As attractive as legalism is, remember this: you'll never get close to God if you're a legalist. Nobody gets intimate with rule makers. Eventually it just breeds resentment. It's only being on the receiving end of undeserved love and grace that sets a heart on fire and makes you fall in love. Legalism will make you obey because you have to, because there are consequences if you don't. But grace will make you adore. And when you love someone, you do things for them because you want to, not because you have to. God bless you this week. I pray you'll be able to live by grace and not by law this week. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with each one of us now and forevermore.
Only by grace can we enter. Only by grace can we stand. Not by our human endeavor, but by the blood of the Lamb. Into your presence you call us, you call us to come. Into your presence you draw us, and now by your grace we come. Now by your grace we come. Lord, if you mark our transgressions, who would stand? Thanks to your grace we are cleansed by the blood call.